If you own companies like Nvidia, AMD, or Micron, you got some great news this week after TSMC reported earnings. Now, if you have other things to do, very quick overview of today's episode. TSMC reported amazing earnings, and they mentioned that the AI market is expected to grow dramatically in 2025, which bodes well for companies like Nvidia as they make up the huge amount of the market share in the AI accelerator space. It's also bullish for companies like Micron as all these AI accelerators need a lot of high bandwidth memory, which is great for Micron's supply and demand balance. Now, while AMD obviously plays in the AI space, it's obviously good, but for AMD, it's still very much dependent in the consumer market. Now, TSMC did report that they are going to grow their overall capital expenditure for equipment because they do see a huge amount of demand coming in the upcoming quarters for the consumer space, obviously dealing with things like computers and mobile devices and laptops, which could bode well for companies like AMD and other players that are really dependent on the consumer market. So in today's episode, I'm going to do more in-depth on all of this. We're going to take a closer look at the transcript, some great quotes that came out from TSMC's management, but that's pretty much everything for this episode if you have other things to do. But first, make sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe button, check out the pinned comment for special offer at fool.com/Jose, and check out my free daily semiconductor newsletter, whatthechip.happened.com. The link is down below. So let's get started.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so let's kind of just look at a quick price action of these three stocks that I mentioned today. Nvidia in the past 5 days is up over 6%. AMD is up over 5%, and Micron is up over 10%. Now, TSMC, after reported earnings, also saw a nice huge influx and is up over 5% in the past 5 days. All right, so first I want to start off with AI demand. And for those that are not familiar with TSMC, this is the biggest manufacturer of advanced chips. Right, they are the leader in AI manufacturing. They are the leader in kind of advanced manufacturing in the semiconductor space. So if anybody is to see the demand of AI, is going to be TSMC. If anybody's supposed to see any demand in any of the semiconductor markets, TSMC is going to be the first one to let us know. And the reason being, right, is because TSMC manufactures the chips, but it still takes a few quarters before kind of the final product goes into the consumer hand, right? So, for example, TSMC manufactures chips for AMD or Intel for their CPU, but it's going to take some time before that CPU makes it into the final product of a laptop. So it kind of gives us a nice overview of what the market should be expecting in certain industries a few quarters in advance. So TSMC mentioned that in 2024, revenue from AI accelerators, which is now defined as a list of AI GPUs, A16, and HBM controllers for AI training and inference in data center, accounted for close to mid-teen percentage of total revenue in 2024. And that's that it tripled in revenue in 2024, and now for 2025, they expect this revenue to more than double at least. So overall, we can see a huge demand for AI accelerators. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, Nvidia is the huge market share winner in the AI accelerator space. So if they continue to win in this market share, and I don't believe they're going to be losing market share anytime soon, it's safe to assume that Nvidia is also going to be able to grow their revenues at strong level in 2025. Now, they now forecast that revenue growth from AI accelerators to approach a mid 40% compounded annual growth rate for the 5-year period, starting off already at a higher base year in 2024. So regardless, TSMC expects that for the next 5 years, or pretty much for the next 4 years, right? The first year was 2024. AI revenue is expected to continue to grow. And I think that is insane. It's just going to continue to, it's still showing us that we are in early innings of AI demand. And I think this is overall very bullish because I've mentioned it in previous episodes that TSMC's management is one that says it how it is, right? This is not a company that's going to overhype anything or that's undershooting anything. They're just going to tell it how it is. It doesn't matter how it's going to affect their overall stock. If they see the demand, they're gonna discuss the demand. If they see a slowdown, they're going to discuss the slowdown as well. Now, there was kind of a question during the earnings, which kind of wanted to see what are the upsides and what are the downsides of AI demand. And the CEO mentioned that I certainly hope there is an upside, but I hope my team can supply enough capacity to support it. Does that give you enough hints? So pretty much TSMC CEO mentions that the demand right now is insane. Even with the extra capacity that they're adding, it seems to not be enough for the overall demand the market is looking for. So pretty much we can see that at least if AI continues to evolve at the way it's going, it's definitely going to be a great time for AI accelerator business, for the AI GPU market. So this could kind of be seen as a bullish evidence that we can put on our Nvidia bull case, because it just showcases that if Nvidia is the dominant player here, if this market is expected to grow dramatically, it's safe to assume that Nvidia is going to continue to grow at massive levels. And obviously this also bodes well for Micron, as we're seeing the demand for HBM continues to grow as every platform and every generation increases the capacity of memory. And as we're going into things like HBM3E, 12 high and 16 high, and HBM4, the trade-off ratio for memory companies on DRAM to HBM continues to increase. So this is going to allow them to be a lot more constraint on supply, which can obviously benefit a market that used to be seen as more of a commodity play. So I think this is very, very good news for companies like Nvidia and Micron Technologies. Now, obviously, AMD does play in the AI accelerator space. I believe they will continue to grow in this space. This is a bullish case, but I don't think AMD is the next Nvidia. I've actually talked about it in a previous episode. While I am bullish in their AI accelerator market, my growth opportunity in that space for AMD is very, very controlled. It's not something that I believe is going to be massive, massive numbers. Now, check out that video if you want to learn more. Now, staying here kind of with the AI space, we want to know about CoWoS and advanced packaging. For those not familiar, this advanced packaging solution is the true bottleneck in the AI space. The reason TSMC can't build enough AI chips is because of advanced packaging. So any updates to this, and the CEO mentions that they're working very hard to meet the requirements of their customer demands. So they're not seeing any cuts in orders of CoWoS. There's been rumors that maybe some players were kind of reducing their orders on CoWoS capacity. Again, he will say that they are working very hard to increase the capacity. So TSMC is continuing to invest in advanced packaging and CoWoS specific, as that is something that's very much used in the AI accelerator space. Now, the next thing I wanted to take a closer look at was the consumer market, right? I talked about AMD. So AMD can obviously benefit from the AI space. But like I mentioned, I think AMD is one of those stocks that has so many opportunities right now, and the revenue is dependent on so many markets. It's not a one market all for AMD. A good portion of AMD's total revenue still comes from client CPUs and the server CPU market. So I wanted to learn a little bit more about the client space and the consumer space. So TSMC mentions that every year their capex is spent in anticipation of the growth that would follow in the future years. And our capex and capacity planning is based on the long-term market demand profile, right? So TSMC is pretty much saying that we're not going to invest in something unless we see that growth potential. If we don't see the growth potential and the actual demand, we're not going to invest in capacity. And like I mentioned, TSMC is very conservative in how they spend money, in what they say, and like I say, they say it how it is. So TSMC is increasing their capital expenditure dramatically in 2025 versus 2024. 2024 was roughly 30 billion. In 2025, on the high end, is expected to be around 42 billion. The main reason is they continue to see strong demand for their 2 nanometer technology and their 3 nanometer technology. And those are, if obviously we're seeing that huge growth in AI accelerators, but at the end of the day, in the supply chain market right now, in the manufacturing business, the biggest contributors to volume, which is very crucial for manufacturing business, is the consumer products, right? Even though you have these cool AI chips, the ones that make the most volume are either CPUs for the consumer market, CPUs for the phone business, and chips that go into those consumer products. So if TSMC is increasing their capital expenditure because they are seeing that huge growth demand in the upcoming quarters, in the upcoming years, that is a very much bullish sentiment, in my opinion, for the consumer space. So I think AMD is one that can see a nice turnaround story. As we know, maybe the AI PC market hasn't really started that refresh cycle, but we've heard that that might happen in the upcoming quarters. And I think this kind of gives that evidence that it will happen. So I'm very, very much bullish for the consumer space, a company that AMD can benefit. Obviously, Micron can benefit here as well, as all these consumer products tend to have high memory usage as well. And now as we're moving to AI PCs and AI products, they're also seeing an increase of memory components themselves. So where normal PCs used to have maybe about 8 gigs of memory, AI PCs tend to have around 12 to 16, which again is bullish for Micron technology. Now, the final thing I want to take a closer look at is other markets. And I thought this was pretty interesting. So if you do follow this market, we have heard about Broadcom, and Broadcom mentioned that there's this huge growth potential for ASIC solutions. And analysts were wondering, hey, is this market numbered right? Can we believe what Broadcom is saying? The CEO of TSMC didn't really want to go into specific numbers, especially for certain industries, but they do mention that demand is real and that the customers are what they're saying are due to the overall strong demand in the AI market. The second one is one that I thought was pretty interesting. So right now, CoWoS capacity, that advanced packaging, is really much only used in AI accelerators. But is there another market that's going to start to use that? And the CEO at first mentioned that today is all AI focused and they have very tight capacity and cannot even meet customers' needs. But with the other products, they adopt this kind of CoWoS approach. They will, it's coming, and we know that it's coming. So that's all I can say. So the CEO didn't really want to tell us anywhere where CoWoS capacity could be used. Later on, after the analysts kept kind of trying to ask questions and project, hey, look, where is this market going to enter? Where is CoWoS going to be used? The CEO mentioned on the CPU and on the server chips. Let me give you a hint. So that's actually pretty interesting, right? It is pretty cool to see that the CPU market is going to start using CoWoS capacity. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on why this is crucial and how CPUs can benefit from this space. So something to keep an eye out, especially if you are maybe a CPU player. AMD can also benefit here, right? Because they are becoming the dominant player in the CPU space and on the server chip space as well. So that's pretty much all the updates I had. Like I mentioned, really great news for the overall semiconductor market, not just for today, but at least for the foreseeable quarters, because the demand TSMC is seeing right now is only going to make finished products a few months and a few quarters from now. So let me know if there's any other things. I think later today or tomorrow, I might want to do another episode on TSMC's earnings, but mainly focus on the equipment player makers, as that is a topic we've talked a lot in this channel. And we even mentioned that this is a market that is very bullish right now, even though the stock prices weren't reflecting it. And TSMC gave us semiconductor equipment players a very, very happy gift or something. I don't know what's the best way to say it. Well, take care, have a good day, and see you all next time.